Hello, you're very welcome along to the Weekend Football Podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Hussey, joined by a full complement of guests this week. Mark O'Hare, Adrian Clarke, and Miguel Delaney joining me. We've got plenty to get through. There's title race talk, a lot of focus this week. The guys wanted to focus on the relegation battle as well in the Premier League. Just before we start, the Masters is on this week. Do check out the Matchbook Betting Exchange. We'll have a lot of in-play markets on the win betting, but also the place markets as well. Top 5, top 10, top 20, whatever way you want to do it. Plenty of stuff there. Check out Matchbook Betting Exchange. Invariably will be the best price on the odds checker grid. We'll get straight into it. The first game we are going to cover is the big one on Sunday, 4:30. It's Liverpool versus Arsenal. We'll take a look at the betting that we currently have on matchbook.com. You can back Liverpool at 2.9. Arsenal favourites at Anfield, 2.5 or 6-4 in all money. The draw is available at 3.8. Both teams to score yes is favoured in this market a good bit at 1.58. No is available 2.5. The Asian handicap line, Liverpool are getting a quarter of a goal head start at 1.82, and the total is available currently at 2.5, shaded a good bit towards the over. So look, Adrian, no better man to start than yourself. Can you believe that Arsenal are going into this game as favourites at Anfield?
It's a very strange feeling. It really is. I think I'm quite proud that they're rated as favourites in a match at Anfield. It shows how far the team has come. Obviously, it also reflects a slight downturn a major downturn in Liverpool's form. But yeah, no, it shows how far the team have come. And in the cold light of day, if you use your eyes and look at this season's Arsenal stats, you can absolutely see them going to Anfield and carving out a win. It's the away record: 1-11, drawn 1, lost 2. It is phenomenal. They've been able to control the majority of matches away from home, gone to places where they've traditionally struggled, like Tottenham and Chelsea, and owned those matches. Very unlucky, I think, to lose at Old Trafford earlier on in the season when a rogue refereeing decision went against them at a key time. So look, the away form is as rock solid as it gets. So if anyone wants to back Arsenal in this game, I wouldn't put them off. But we know about the team's track record in this fixture. It's not great, and that I think also has to be under consideration, as does Liverpool's home form. So for all of Liverpool's nightmare this season, for want of a better phrase, they've actually been pretty good at home. I think they've won 9 of 13. They've lost just 1 against Leeds. That was a long time ago. And in the big matches at Anfield, they have turned up. They've beat Man City. They beat Man United handsomely. They beat Newcastle, albeit they scraped past them. This is a tough fixture. And if Liverpool do play well, then Arsenal will be hard pushed to get a result. So yeah, it's a really hard game to pick, I've got to say. I'm completely conflicted, absolutely conflicted, because I think Arsenal's midfield tramples all over Liverpool. I think they're a class above what Liverpool can put out in that midfield 3. But both attacks, I think, are equally capable of creating carnage inside the final third. So yeah, on paper, Arsenal have the edge here. The form book says that. But if Liverpool turn up, it will be extremely hard for Liverpool for Arsenal to win this game. My pick, and don't come at me, Gooners, is Liverpool plus a quarter of a goal, because of Liverpool's home record this season, because they've turned up in some big games, and because I think Arsenal without William Saliba are going to have to defend extremely well to keep them at bay. Would not surprise me if the game ended in a draw, in which case we would be in profit with this pick. To get Liverpool on a handicap at home in this fixture, was it 1.82? I think it's been nipped in from 1.85. Yeah. I think that is the most sensible play, but it's not what I want to put on. It's not what I want to put money on, that's for sure.
Yeah, Mark, I like to think I have a good feel of where you're at with most teams, particularly at this time of the season. So I did get a little bit of a shock looking at that document this morning, though. You're in agreement with Adrian's pick here?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's not a strong selection by any means. It's a very, very difficult game to call, and all common sense shows that Arsenal are deserved favourites to win at Anfield. We know that. They've been the most consistent. They've been excellent since that defeat to Man City as well, scoring 3 goals regularly during wins. just 3 defeats all season in the Premier League, the best away record by a distance. But football isn't always straightforward, and Arsenal have 3 very difficult games to end the season, away at Man City, away at Anfield, and away at Newcastle. And this is a game that I think is a potential for them to drop points, because if Liverpool do decide to reach their top level, which we haven't seen too often this season, but if they do reach that top level, they're going to be as good as Arsenal, as good as any team on the planet, in fairness. And we've seen that in some of their prices. I know Man City were around about evens, possibly odds on to win at Anfield, but that's Man City. They were favourites to win at the Emirates. They're at 2.35. But Real Madrid came here and they were 3.3 in the Champions League first leg. So there's quite a significant difference between Real Madrid and Arsenal there in price. And, that's testament to Arsenal and their great campaign so far this season. But I've just been burnt opposing Liverpool at Anfield a few times now. Adrian's already talked about the defeats to Man City, Man United and Newcastle. I know in 2 of those games against the Manchester clubs, I opposed Liverpool here and they managed to turn up and produce a show. Particularly that Man City match where they started the season really sloppily. They had James Milner at right back, Gomez at centre half, because I think Konate pulled out late on in the game. They were in a really low ebb, really poor form. But they turned it on that day and they beat Man City, who are rated as a much better team than Arsenal are so far this season by the layers. And so, there's a noted caution there. The good form for Liverpool at home, not just across the whole campaign, but more recently, 5 wins from 6 at home in the Premier League. They haven't conceded a home league goal in the Premier League since 30th of December, which is almost 7.5 hours. And I looked at the underlying metrics. It's so Jekyll and Hyde. I've got them ranked second on expected points at home so far this season, which goes to show that their underlying metrics are really strong. In fact, their home XG figures aren't far off Man City levels. So they are creating and absolutely pulverising teams when they come to Anfield. Defensively, of course, they're questionable. Midfield is a bit of a joke at times too. Recent form, that performance against Chelsea midweek, very, very poor. Second half of Man City last week, very, very poor. But I just can't write them off completely. And I feel like the 2.5 on Arsenal, it's not a trap, of course it's not. It's the right price. But I just think to be able to get both results on side, backing Liverpool with a plus at Anfield, it's fair enough, I think. It's not a game I've got a really, really strong view on at all. But as I say, I've been burnt opposing Liverpool in these kind of quarters a few times already. And I'm just kind of relying on them to really sort of turn up to the party and put on a bit of a show. I give them a bit of a puncher's chance here. I just think this, in the cold light of day, we need Arsenal to win for us not to make money. That's a position I'm kind of comfortable to be in terms of the price.
Okay, yeah, as guys, regular listeners to the podcast know, we do invariably let the guys choose the games they want to cover, but sometimes the marquee games, we do push them in. So Liverpool-Arsenal is that marquee game. Miguel, over to you on this one. Is there danger the guys are perhaps overcomplicating a little bit, just looking at even something I was looking at earlier this morning, goals scored? Arsenal scored 70 goals in the Premier League this season. Liverpool have 48, which includes that 7-0 hammering to Manchester United. Is there a danger that Arsenal are just a better team right now than Liverpool?
So I take all their points, what they're saying about kind of the strength of Anfield, how Liverpool are capable of going to top levels. But I think that was something that was only possibly true for most of the season. I think the Champions League elimination to Real Madrid and what's happened since has caused a real dividing line in Liverpool season in terms of the mood of the place. And I think they're in danger of really letting this drift. I was at the game on Tuesday night and I would describe it as the worst game of the season, except it was so entertainingly hilarious. But it was so bad. That Liverpool team was a mess, and not just because of Klopp's changes, because it didn't really function. It just looked like a team not on it. And while I suppose the logic on the podcast has often been to not judge in the last game, that obviously feeds into a context from what happened on Saturday, where City repeatedly ripped them apart, and where they just haven't looked like Liverpool, even a Liverpool that on the rare occasions this season have turned it on since that Real Madrid elimination. And it's that, I mean, if you look at it logically, and if Arsenal play, the one caveat is any nerves Arsenal potentially feel, especially given that Southampton play Manchester City just beforehand. But if, as Adrian's already alluded to, in terms of that midfield, if Arsenal play as they do, as they can, and just impose their game on Liverpool, I can't see Liverpool being able to match them in field. We don't know what Liverpool's attack will be or even whether it'll function. And I can't actually see Arsenal overrunning them. And I mean, I would almost be confident to go Arsenal to win this 2-0. But I'm going to go, it's maybe quite an abrasive pick, but Arsenal and both teams to score, no. I was really struck by just how bad Liverpool were on Tuesday, especially after what happened against Manchester City. And that's only heightened by, because I actually think the very fact that Klopp went for that starting 11 is alarming itself. And that was clearly a team to try and force some sort of reaction, and a reaction he didn't get.
Okay, Miguel, you're getting a bit of support in the comments. You boys know it's not April Fool's Day, right? Arsenal 2.5 versus this Liverpool team from Billy on YouTube to Mark and Adrian. We'll lock this in as a no bet, Adrian. I think it's a tough one to call, as you touched on.
Oh, it's so hard. It is so hard. But
only...
because Liverpool have been so bad. They really have. It's just you can't help but think that if they bring what they're capable of, they'll cause Arsenal problems. Arsenal have got all those clean sheets. Miguel's, bang on with that pick. I think 64% of their away games have ended in a clean sheet. So they're more than capable of doing it. But then you look at the tougher away games so far. Brighton away conceded a couple. Villa away conceded a couple. And at Manchester United conceded 3. And obviously Saliba's not. We don't think Saliba's going to start here. So
no.
So we'll see. We'll see how it pans out. Yeah, I'll be delighted to be wrong here.
Mark, final word.
No, the only negative, the strongest negative I have against Liverpool this week is the fact it's been a really tough week, going to Man City, going to Chelsea, and then playing Arsenal. It's quite a testing week, and Arsenal have had the feet up this midweek, which I think could make a big difference. But Arsenal, I think they've only won once against the top 4 so far this season, which was the 3-2 against Man United at the Emirates, failed to beat Newcastle, lost against Man City.
Beat Liverpool, the current top 4, yeah, sorry.
Yeah. So, we'll see. I mean, it might look an idiot come Sunday evening, but I'm just kind of counting. I think that team sheet this midweek from Klopp kind of had an eye on this game. I think he's fully aware that matches at Anfield, they tend to be up for. And I kind of go back to that Man City match in September, October time, whenever it was, when they were completely written off. City went off as odds-on favourites at Anfield. Liverpool won. Yeah,
it's interesting. Miguel's pick Arsenal both teams to score now is a quite tasty 5.4. We'll lock it at no bet as an official bet, but all the guys' picks are going to be available on Matchbook Insights Thursday afternoon. We spent a lot of time on that game. I think that was to be expected. We'll move on to Miguel's game of choice here, but this is just a fascinating game to talk about in general. The undercard to the Liverpool Arsenal game, Leeds versus Crystal Palace. Take a look at the betting that we currently have at matchbook.com. You can currently back Leeds at 2.18 favourites at home at Ellen Road. Crystal Palace are 3.8. The draw is 3.5. Both teams to score yes is available at 1.93. No is 1.95. The Asian handicap line sees Crystal Palace get a quarter of a goal head start at 2.08, and the total for this game is 2.5, shaded a good bit towards the under. So Miguel, no official bet here from yourself, but set up this game, Leeds versus Palace. Like it's a crucial game. There were serious scenes at Ellen Road, I thought, watching that match of the day last night.
So I was looking at this, and I'm looking at the fixtures. Obviously, this is one of the crunch games, but we're going to have a series of them from now on in. I think there's an awful lot to discuss with it, but because there's so much to discuss, I actually found it's one of the most unpredictable games of the weekend. I mean, say even on a basic level, Hodgson was first of all just taken over Palace and got a result that from a performance that went against basically every single trend of Hodgson's career, especially as regards the amount of shots they had. Now, my instinct, because it's Hodgson, would usually be that because they got that win, because this is away from home, that they will go up to Leeds and just sit deep and frustrate, which would inform maybe kind of either both teams to score no or a low-scoring game. But equally, I do wonder whether, because of the way they went at that Leicester game and because of the attacking players that Palace have now, whether Hodgson will kind of go back on that, try to sustain that momentum, especially against a Leeds team that can be vulnerable. I'm a big fan of Javi Gracia. I think he's done a really good job there already, having previously done a good job at Watford. But it's also a Leeds team that's the squad is built on hard running, which in itself plays into potentially erratic games. With all of this accentuated, of course, by the fact I think these two teams, because of recent results, there's suddenly, and this I suppose shows how congested it is. But they're suddenly at that point where one more win for either of them, and they've got real breathing space. I mean, from that, maybe the safest is actually a draw. But it is one of those where there's enough justification and evidence to point towards a low-scoring game. On the other side, enough justification and evidence to point towards one of the free for all, because that's another side to this as well. I think we're going to be in a point now where every weekend we have a chaotic bottom half match just because of the stakes involved and the way those sort of games develop, and because it's so evenly matched between so many teams.
And like you said, Miguel, a win for either team, the rewards are huge for this, and they're not effectively safe, but take a big step towards that. Adrian, something we didn't touch on the Arsenal game, for 30 minutes before that penalty decision, I thought Leeds, or maybe 25 minutes, I thought Leeds really put up a good show, and they followed it up, as I touched on the top, with that performance midweek. And I felt the atmosphere and scenes at Ellen Road that we've seen in patches this season, but it felt like it was a club united behind this new manager.
I think they like him. Yeah, I do. I've had a good look at both these teams recently in the flesh at Arsenal, and I've got to say that Leeds were better than Palace by quite a bit in terms of their robustness at the back. Even though Arsenal won 4-1 both games, I felt that Leeds were much better than Crystal Palace. It just looked more of a team, and that was even without a number of their star players that I think will start this match. You know, the likes of Bamford, Rodrigo, Nonto, etc. Some of it, Weston McKennie didn't play at Emirates as well. So, yeah, I would give Leeds the edge on that kind of form. I do think the Hodgson unbelievable stat, was it 31 shots against Leicester? I can't see that carrying on, can you? I think that surely that is an outlier. Surely that's a new manager bounce type thing, and we'll go back to the norm. I don't know. So yeah, Leeds from my eye test are slightly better. Their home form is good. Well, they've won 3 of their last 6 games, so they're not in relegation form. At home, to the bottom half clubs currently in the Premier League, played 7, won 5, drawn 2, lost none. So this is the type of match Leeds have been winning all season long. In fact, they've only lost at home once to a side outside of the top 4, and that's Fulham. 3-2 quite a long time ago. Leeds are also a bogey team for Palace. I don't know if you're aware of that. They've won 7 straight in all competitions, Leeds, against Crystal Palace. So whether you believe in that or not, it's, you know, some people do. And Palace don't like playing Leeds. It's as simple as that. Hodgson has a terrible record against Leeds, probably for that reason. Gracia has a great record against Crystal Palace as Watford boss as well. So I think all things considered, I fancy Leeds here. I do, with the wave of home support, with their home form, with the fact that they got some of their better players fit and available again. I think that initial bounce we saw from Palace against Leicester might just shrivel up a little bit, and I can see a home win here.
Okay, yeah, Mark, over to you on that one. What about the points Miguel and Adrian touched on with that Roy Hodgson opening day performance and how attacking they were? Is it going to be back to the norm there, and in which case both teams to score, yes, could be under a small bit of pressure here?
I'm sorry.
Go on.
No. I thought you called me. Sorry. Go on.
Okay. I find it. No, they're not going to have another 30 shots this weekend. I can answer that one for sure. But Zaha's injured, which is a blow, obviously. But what I did like about the game against Leicester was Eze coming back into the fold and being very, very influential. And he is a player who came through under Hodgson after his move from QPR and made a real difference. Hasn't been used quite as often under Vieira. So they did look like they had released the shackles a little bit against Leicester, showcase what they're capable of. And this Palace team can score goals. We know that. They've already been away to the Emirates, the Etihad, Anfield and Old Trafford and scored. So I don't see why they can't go to Ellen Road and score. And one thing I've noticed in recent weeks, maybe it's just a Leeds thing, but matches between these kind of bottom 6, bottom 8 strugglers, the 6-pointers, have been a bit more entertaining than I probably anticipated, particularly Leeds. You know, the 4-2 away at Wolves midweek against Forest was actually quite a fun affair. Went down early doors, but came back roaring and played really well. Gracia fielded a bit more of an orthodox team midweek compared to what he did against Arsenal last weekend, and got rewarded for it, really. And, you know, you've still got Rodrigo and Nonto on the bench there too. But I still worry for Leeds when there's no Tyler Adams in that midfield. I know McKennie's a decent player to fill in there, but just 5 clean sheets all season in the Premier League for Leeds and no Tyler Adams doesn't fill me with a huge amount of confidence. So, yeah, I think both teams to score, if I was going to have a play on this game, would be probably the angle I would be considering, around 1.96. Fully expect Leeds to score. They tend to do so at Ellen Road. But as I say, Palace have got a decent track record of getting on the score sheet. And for all Javi Grazia's kind of pragmatic nature throughout his managerial career, Leeds' recent 4 matches have all featured over 2.5 goals and both teams to score landing. Their games this season across the whole campaign, I know that's probably unfair to judge because he's only been in charge for half a dozen, but they're averaging 3 goals per game. And as I say, just 5 clean sheets all season. But if you look at their record against the bottom, from 12th downwards, who we consider to be in the relegation dogfight, 8 of those 12 matches have seen both teams scoring, including almost all of them at home to bottom half teams as well. So, yeah, I think Leeds can and will score. I think they've got enough firepower in that squad with Rodrigo and Bamford fit available, Nonto as well, Sinisterra coming in and scoring a nice goal in midweek. But Palace, yeah, I don't discount them. And look, if they continue in the same vein as last weekend, we should be in for a good game.
Yeah, Miguel, wrap up the Roy Hodgson points there. No, you just briefly want to come in just on.
I think that Hodgson saw that game, given how shot shy Palace had been under Vieira. He made a point of telling that team to shoot on sight, almost to change the momentum or change the mentality. It was that's such an easy switch, a bit of an old trick, I think. And that's why I wonder whether it'd be similar this week, trying to keep that going rather than the typical Hodgson kind of reactive approach away from home.
Yeah, tough one first podcast pick here. I'm actually going to go with Leeds 2.18. Adrian, I saw something midweek that Club United again, and I just think back on Sky Sports they may put in a massive performance there, but could be a 2-1 sort of scoreline there. And again, as I touched on, all these picks from the guys, don't worry, will be available on Matchbook Insights. Halfway there, we'll crack on with Spurs at home to Brighton. Big games for the top 4, 6-pointer effectively here. We'll take a look at the betting that we have on Matchbook.com, and I was shocked myself to see this in some ways, despite being a big Brighton fan. Spurs are 2.68, Brighton 2.78, so effectively favourites on a neutral venue. 3.65 is the draw. Both teams to score yes is available at 1.71. No is 2.24. The Asian handicap line is a draw no bet market. Spurs ever so slight favourites here at 1.96. And the goal line is 2.5 shaded towards the over. So Mark, this is your game of choice. I think you're keen always to talk about Brighton games in particular. Just how impressive you've been with De Zerbi. In some ways it probably was the perfect storm, I guess, with Graham Potter having a lot of the foundations there. But what they've done and how entertaining they are to watch has been unbelievable this season.
Yeah, they are a live candidate now for the top 4, particularly if they get this result at Tottenham as well. I know Man United and Newcastle winning midweek doesn't help their cause, but even still, they've got a couple of games in hand on Spurs as well. So 1 defeat in the last 11. They're actually unbeaten away since October as well. And I think what's probably worrying for the top 4 teams is they're trending upwards. They're putting in consistently strong performances and possibly getting better week by week as well. And I thought it was quite interesting that De Zerbi and some of the players after the game against Bournemouth on Tuesday night were actually talking about, trying to qualify for Europe, whether that's the Europa League or through the Champions League. It's certainly a target of theirs and they're looking towards it. And the market absolutely loves them. They went off a very, very short price at Bournemouth. They have been going off short prices all season, but that's because they are trending like a top 4 team and have been doing so for quite some time. And if you look at their goal scoring prowess, their chance creation is as good as most teams in this division, if not better. If you look at the last sort of 4, 8 and 12 game splits on the underlying metrics, they're rated as a top 4 team, and that's now showing in the prices. And there's a possibility they could go off favourites here at Tottenham, which is crazy when you think about it. It's Tottenham against Brighton, but if you take out their names and call them Team A and Team B, it's hard to disagree really, because Spurs have been stinking the place out now for quite some time, and Brighton have been just very, very enjoyable to watch. And I think I heard someone say Brighton haven't actually been on television in the UK this calendar year in terms of the Premier League, which is, we're missing out because their matches are just fantastic fun. And whilst they didn't go over the 2.5 line against Bournemouth in midweek, they did keep only their 2nd away clean sheet of the season. They were put under lots of pressure, conceded 10 shots in the box, an XG count of 1.7. Jason Steele had to make some smart saves. Bournemouth suffered from some poor finishing too, but I'm going to back over 2.5 goals in this game, which has drifted to 1.91 now, which is just far too big for a game involving Brighton. And the beauty of the Brighton approach is they can cover this line all on their own, or they could easily lose this game 3-0. The likelihood is both teams will contribute, but I just love backing goals in Brighton games because they're so fun to follow. Just 6 clean sheets under De Zerbi. The midweek game was the first time they'd done or kept a clean sheet away from home under him, and just their 7th in 32 games since the start of last season. But they're scoring fluently, failed to score just 4 times under the Italian. They've scored in all but 1 away game all season. They've scored multiple goals in 9 of 13 away. And go back to the beginning of last season, they've only failed to score 5 times in 32 on their travels, which is an immense record. It's as good as any in the Premier League, basically. And for all Spurs' flaws, their issues, they still have Harry Kane leading the line, and Harry Kane continues to score week in, week out. So Spurs have, I think, failed to score just twice at home all season. Fully expect Spurs to score in this match. Brighton will score, and then you're looking for a third goal, which I think should come as well. So 1.91, over 2.5 goals. For me, it's the best bet in the Premier League this weekend.
Oh, okay. And yeah, what I was going to say to listeners to give them a bit of insight, Mark made this bet last night at over 2.5 at 1.86. It's now 1.91, so you can guarantee with no extra injury news that Mark definitely makes it a bet. And the best thing about this bet, Adrian, is Evan Ferguson could get all 3 goals on his own.
He could, right? He's, the island have unearthed a real star, haven't they? Big fan of his. He's destined for big things. Look, I'm in complete agreement with Mark. As soon as I saw this fixture, I went, it's either both teams score or it's overs. And to see that it's been stretched to 1.91, happy days. 69% of Brighton's away games this season have gone over 2.5, 10 of 13. Both teams have scored. So, when Mark says he fully expects Brighton to score and for Spurs to score too, it's no surprise there. They're actually averaging 2 goals a game on the road. And they're second top away goal scorers behind Arsenal, having played a game less. So, they could win. If they score, I think, two goals in this game, they'd go at least level with Arsenal for away goals scored. And we know how good Arsenal have been on their travels this season. So, Brighton are a really dangerous team for Spurs. I've got to say, though, for all of their, the shocking form that they've produced, Tottenham, that they are on a run of 4 straight home wins. They've beaten Man City, they beat West Ham, they beat Chelsea, they beat Nottingham Forest. It's ridiculous, really. And they average over 2 goals per game at home as well. So if you chuck their home average, Brighton's away average, you're getting over 4 goals per game. And that's how I see it. So, over 2.5 for me.
Okay, Miguel, slightly opposite end of the scale in terms of both teams to score no here, 2.24. Is that more looking at Tottenham's lack of attacking options here, perhaps?
Well, again, it's recent performances, really. Maybe a little bit of a tone shift since Conte went, but also how they've changed manager. But really what we're seeing at Spurs right now, it feels like the end product of 4 years almost where they've been playing in a particularly reactive approach. And to me, this looks like a team that is afraid to take the ball on. They were dismal against Everton. I think there's a little bit of a knock-on effect here. And I think it's something that Brighton can specifically, especially with the way Brighton play and they look to invite Spurs on, I think it's actually something Brighton will exploit in that way. Also, there's a real... I was tempted to go for a Brighton win here, but I kind of erred against it, just I suppose, because both teams score no allows for the possibility of a 1-0 Spurs win, something that can't be ruled out with the lads have touched on, with how defensive they can be, that run of home wins, and they've got Harry Kane there. But we're also at the point now where there's a real kind of potential prize for Brighton, where suddenly the possibility of a Champions League becomes very real. I mean, if they win their 2 games in hand, if this is a draw, say, then they go ahead of Spurs. So, I mean, there's actually... Brighton might go from suddenly nicely ticking along in the way that sort of club does, or that sort of team does, just points to the realisation that something real is at stake, and it's a bit of a crunch game in that regard. If we're breaking it down normally, I'd fancy Brighton to just go and beat them. But, of course, there's all sorts of other factors disputing that. And I think from that perspective, I don't expect to be that open a game. I've gone against the lads here. Well, actually, I potentially haven't. We could have a 3-0
win. Yeah.
But
both teams score now 2.24-ish, Miguel.
I think from that perspective, I think the first goal will be crucial. That will dictate the entire game, who gets it.
And very quickly on TV rights, Miguel, I thought the whole point of not seeing United Brentford on Wednesday, but seeing West Ham Newcastle was to give every team a go. But Mark's right on that point. Brighton Arsenal, 31st December last time Brighton were on UK TV.
It's remarkable, yeah. I mean, two of the stories of the season, it's like 1985, 86 all over again. that was when there was a TV dispute, which meant a lot of it wasn't.
Yeah.
But with this case, I mean, it is in terms of kind of live that Arsenal could potentially win the league, and so many of the recent games, and really, we look back to the really kind of influential game, the Bournemouth game, that wasn't shown. Similar with Brighton, who could, especially if they end up in the Champions League, which can't be ruled out. And everyone's had to kind of make do with highlights.
Yeah, I thought that was fascinating and point there, Mark. 6.8 Brighton Champions League price. Spurs currently 4.1. So if you do like playing those outright markets, Matchbook invariably, again, given the liquidity and the nature of the betting exchange, will be invariably best price. So do keep an eye on those markets each week. I know I do. 6.8 is calling me out there before this weekend, but we will see. I just think United Newcastle potentially have too much to do. But we'll crack on with the final game, Leicester versus Bournemouth. We'll take a look at the betting first that we have on matchbook.com. This is a game of Adrian's choice here. He picked out Leicester 1.91, Bournemouth 4.6 away. The draw is 3.85. Both teams to score, yes. 1.82 is favourite here. No's available at 2.1. The Asian handicap line gives Bournemouth a half a goal start at just over even money, 2.08. And the goal line is 2.5. Adrian, look, I don't really have much. I don't know where to start with Leicester, so I'll let you lead in on Leicester here. Like, where
don't back
do
them at odds on. Don't back them.
Well, there,
I mean, 1.91 on Leicester.
10 to 11.
They've lost 6 of their last 7. They've only won 3 at home all season. The King Power is not a happy place, and they don't have a manager. Not at the time. Not at the time that we're recording. Anyway, I think Frank Lampard has been confirmed at Chelsea, so they've filled that with one sort of legend. Very surprisingly, and there's talk of Martin O'Neill, isn't there, at Leicester, which would be just feels bonkers to me. But anyway, onto this game. Like you say, I can't get on side with Leicester. In terms of, I think goals is where I see it. And Miggs talked about a lot of these relegation games, or Mark did as well, actually. A lot of these relegation games being quite lively, much less cautious than you'd imagine. And I think a lot of that is down to just how porous the defences are. I just think there's a real lack of quality at the back. Every team seems to have dangerous forwards. Leicester just 3 home clean sheets in 14 matches. So there's every chance that Bournemouth will get themselves a goal here. As for Bournemouth, just 1 away clean sheet all season. That was in the win at Wolves not that long ago. But yeah, on the road, they tend to leak goals. So that immediately makes me think, well, both teams to score is a runner. I think, Leicester have got the talent to score. Bournemouth don't have they're not negative. That's the thing about Bournemouth. They play with courage. They play with heart. I think that sometimes they get undone because they're not good enough. But I think that their mentality is actually to go out there and try to win games. Look at their XG, by the way, across the last 5 matches, all against top half opposition. Okay, so they've had a tough run of games. 1.74, 2.65, 1.36, 0.86, and 1.33. So they've been expected to score pretty much at least between 1 and 3 goals in each of those games. And they're respectable XG numbers that Bournemouth have put up against tidy teams. Leicester are much worse than any of the sides they've played in that run. So I expect them to have chances here. And I think that they can get something out of the game. No Dewsbury Hall for Leicester. I think that's quite important. And for Leicester, what an important run this is. They got 4 massive home games, starting with Bournemouth. They got Wolves. They got Everton. They've also got West Ham. Their fate, I think, is going to be decided at the King Power Stadium, which is a nervous place right now. So look, I don't know who's going to win, but I can see both teams scoring, and that's my selection.
Yeah, Miguel, as the relegation battles go, it doesn't get bigger than 19th at home to 18th.
Yeah, especially given the free fall that Leicester been on. I mean, I'm very much same mindset. Maybe even in BTTS seems maybe a little bit conservative, given there is a slight temptation to go even higher. In terms of kind of goals scored, but it's probably the safer bet, especially given this was the possibility that Leicester look to lock in, given they've changed manager, given how precarious their situation is. But also I think a good rule of thumb for the remainder of the season is to expect all of these relegation clashes to be quite open.
Okay, yeah, and as Adrian touched on about the defences there, and Mark and Adrian also mentioned that 1.91 price on Leicester, and you are going to take them on, effectively laying them here with Bournemouth.
Yeah, Adrian did my work for me. Why would you want to back Leicester at odds on? They've won 3 times at the King Power all season without a clean sheet since the World Cup. They've lost 10 of those 14 fixtures. They've lost 18 of 29 overall, the joint worst record in the division. Just didn't see enough improvement in midweek, losing at home to Villa. I know a red card contributed, but they only managed 6 shots in the box and an XG figure below 0.5. Any team that concedes 30 shots to a Roy Hodgson team is truly horrendous and horrific, and I need to steer well clear of them. So, Bournemouth haven't been getting the just desserts lately. They've been much improved since the January transfer window when they made some really smart signings. Beaten in midweek at Brighton, but as I already mentioned, they had opportunities to equalise before the late second goal. They beat Fulham, beat Liverpool at home, but they've also put in some decent performances against the big teams. Man City, the final score was quite harsh. Arsenal obviously could and should have easily gone in a different ending. Beaten Newcastle, or should have beaten Newcastle. Won at Wolves not so long ago either. So obviously the red herring here is the away record, which is 10 defeats and 14. But I don't think the market is completely caught up with the positive changes that they've made. Hamid Traore, Utara have made big impacts when fit and available. Having Billing and Lerma fit in midfield is massive. Same as Solanke leading the line. Neto's done a great job between the sticks, and Zabani is now fit and available. Made his first appearance in midweek too. So they are a different beast this calendar year, and I think they just deserve a bit more respect in the market than they are right now. So to get 2.1 on Bournemouth plus half a goal, effectively to avoid defeat, that's fine. But yeah, I wouldn't bet anyone off goals either. So I was just really made to feel a little bit sick when I saw that Leicester price and needed to oppose it.
The thought of Mark getting physically ill looking at the updated match odds after a Premier League weekend. 1.91 is that Leicester price that Mark is effectively taking on. Bournemouth plus half a goal, 2.1. We will lock in both teams to score 1.82, gives us that a bit of room for margin. But look, Leicester, as the guys touched on, 3 wins all season. If someone tells you the King Power is a tough place to go this season, they're definitely spoofing you for sure. Before we go to European bets, a quick reminder that if you are watching, all we ask for is you do hit that like button on the YouTube stream and do subscribe for free to the YouTube channel. It will help us continue to make this free betting content. And if you're listening to the podcast, we much appreciate that as well. Do leave a preferential review, on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Mark, I was as surprised as anyone. I can't recall off the top of my head a Scottish Premiership pick from Mark O'Hare. So correct me if I'm wrong firstly and tell me why Aberdeen are a standout price this weekend against Kilmarnock.
Yeah, it's been a while, but they're going great guns. They sacked their manager Jim Goodwin in late January after a really disastrous run. I think it was well publicised, but they lost to a 6th tier side in the Scottish Cup and then were beaten 6-0 by Hibs immediately after that. So he was sacked in late January. Barry Robson took the reins on an interim basis, but he's since taken the job till the end of the season because the turnaround has been very positive. Last weekend, they won 1-0 at St Johnstone. A red card went in their favour, but it was quite a hard-fought victory. But it was a 4th win on the spin and their 5th win in 6. The only game they didn't win in that sample was at Celtic, which is understandable. They've kept 3 clean sheets in that 4-game winning streak. And they're now just 1 point off Hearts in 3rd, which kind of goes to show how good their turnaround has been. They won all 3 games at Pittodrie under Robson, and their home record this season is very, very strong. Exclude the Old Firm, and they've won 10 of 13 at Pittodrie. So very strong operators, and that's backed up by the numbers as well. They're the 3rd best team according to XG and expected points at home, and they're playing a Kilmarnock side who are ranked rock bottom, not just on the underlying metrics, but also the actual outcomes, because they played 15 away games in the Scottish Premiership this season, Kilmarnock, and they have won 2 points, 13 defeats from 15.
Okay.
6 goals away from home. They've conceded 32 away, failed to score in 10 of 15, and they're averaging 0.36 expected goals per play away from home. So 1.95. I'm happy to take Aberdeen at those prices.
Bigger price than Leicester.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. And what planet are Leicester a better bet at 1.91? Yeah. I just sometimes it's simple, Mark. Yeah, Aberdeen 1.95 locked in as an official bet on the podcast here. In the European section, Europe a bit of a stretch with Scotland, but we won't get into those complicated matters anymore. Adrian, EFL, less complicated matters. Championship, Sheffield United, backing them and having pro Sheffield United picks has definitely been profitable this season.
Definitely, yeah. Remember, there's Good Friday games and Easter Monday, so these will be coming up tomorrow. Yeah, on Friday. Yeah, look, Sheffield United against Wigan is second versus 24th. So for me to get 2.14 on the home win with multiple scorelines is really, really attractive. I've got to say. Sheffield United have won 4 of their last 6, so they're in decent enough form. All of those games came in at under 3.5 goals. They've won 11 of 18 at home, so they're not a shoe-in to win at home. But this is Wigan, who have really, really struggled away from home. I think their last away win, Wigan, was on the 1st of October. 6 of 7 away games for them in 2023 have gone under 2.5 Wigan. So they're involved in a lot of tight games, Wigan. They're capable of keeping the score down. Could be quite a cagey game. Sean Malone is the manager there at Wigan, former Wigan player, of course. And yeah, I think they can make it tricky enough for Sheffield United, but ultimately just don't think they're good enough. Their record against the top half this season, the Latics, is played 22, won 2, drawn 8, lost 12. And I do think they'll lose to Sheffield United. So yeah, they're a bit skinny to back on the nose, Sheffield United, but couple it of under 3.5, and it's a much better price.
Okay, yeah, and the second game is again Good Friday, 3:00, League 2 Grimsby against Hartlepool here.
Yeah, this is really interesting. I think we're into on the beach territory for Grimsby. They are very.
I love this. Sorry, every year I love this angle from Adrian Clarke. But carry on.
They've got nothing to play for, Grimsby. They're safe. They're not getting into the playoffs. And they're not very good at home, Grimsby. 4 wins from 18 all season. So look, they're a decent team. Remember, they knocked Southampton out of the FA Cup, didn't they? But yeah, they've struggled badly at home. They've averaged 1 goal a game on home turf this season at Blundell Park. So yeah, not the strongest team on their own patch. Nothing to play for. Up against a highly motivated Hartlepool at the moment. They're in the bottom 2 at the moment, but they're on a brilliant run. 6 unbeaten under the new manager, John Askey. They drew 5 in a row. Tough games, drew them all, and then last weekend they won against Swindon by 2-1. A couple of late goals there. They've scored in every game under the new manager. They've got 10 goals in those 6 games. And even though their away record is not great this season for obvious reasons, being in the bottom 2, they did beat relegation rivals Crawley and Rochdale away from home, Hartlepool. So for me, they're just the price is very high. I think they're rated 5.0, which is obviously 4-1 to win the game. I think they should be a little bit shorter than that, given their current form, given that they've got an awful lot of motivation. So for me, Hartlepool plus half a goal. So we get the draw, we get the Hartlepool win. Just shy of even money at 1.96. Yeah, so it's a good one to follow, in my opinion.
Yeah, Hartlepool plus half a goal, 1.96, and Sheffield United under 3.5 versus Wigan 2.14. The 2 Good Friday picks there. Good Friday, great day of sport, plenty of golf on with the Masters, of course, but also our horse racing. There'll be the All-Weather Championships finals, and we have our horse racing podcast recording Thursday afternoon, so that should be in your podcast feed Thursday evening. Fear enough, Manchester United fans. United Everton was very close to making our top 4 this weekend. Probably unlucky in some ways, just given how big those relegation battles are. But in our log shot sections, Miguel, you like a correct score here, United home to Everton in the early kickoff.
Yeah, I'm a bit kind of maybe influenced as well with the 1-0 against Brentford. But United, it feels like that. I mean, Dyche is going to make this difficult. Maybe there's a little. I think the Brentford game can be important in terms of restoring a bit of doggedness to United. And then maybe if Rashford has found, or kind of had that bite again, I fancy a 1-0. It feels there's a bit of logic to that.
Yes.
It's a decent price, yeah.
7.8 currently. Yeah, it does feel the wheels came off a bit with United, and to get back to that level, they may have to dig out a couple of 1-0 wins. Adrian, you're not really selling Wolves versus Chelsea in the correct score here. So sell the bet to us, maybe.
I'm working on this. Yeah, if you're outside the UK and Ireland, you can listen to me on co-commentary for this.
Talk sport.
TalkSport International. Not expecting loads of goals in this game. I think 0-0 is an interesting one to follow. 2 of their last 4 meetings have ended goalless. We saw Chelsea obviously involved in that board draw against Liverpool the other day. This fixture last season was 0-0. And Wolves did let in 4 in their last home game, remember, against Leeds. So I think there'll be a heavy focus on trying to keep things much, much tighter from Lopetegui. So it wouldn't surprise me if they kept Chelsea quiet. Obviously, Lampard will take charge of the Chelsea team. He's not a gung-ho manager, is he? I think he's not risk averse, but he's quite a cagey manager, I think, by nature. And they have had 11 blanks this season, Chelsea, which shows you how bad they've been going forward. That's 38% of their matches they've failed to score. It's not far off Wolves. Wolves have failed to score in 41% of their matches. And Chelsea games in general average the lowest amount of goals, 2.03. Wolves matches average very little more, 2.24, which is the 4th lowest. So we don't have 2 exciting teams here. And yeah, I just think I can see it happening. 9.8, quite an attractive price.
So thoughts on anyone having to work that game, Adrian? So we'll move on. Mark, you were very close. Well, in some ways with Getafe, you were probably right with the pro Getafe angle last week. You're going to stick to your guns here, and with probably a tougher assignment away to Real Sociedad.
Yeah, Getafe got 0-0 at Athletic last weekend, gave away no big chances and an XG figure below 1.0 at San Mamés, which kind of goes to show how good they can be defensively. Very impressive rearguard display. And as we said last week, they're very accustomed to these close and competitive matches, and it doesn't take a lot to kind of get one of those over the line. And just kind of repeating the same formula here, because they haven't lost by 2 goals or more since September, but their form has been gradually improving, particularly over the last 8, where they've lost just once. They've won 3 of the last 6. They've held Atletico and Athletic on their travels. In that sequence, they're trending like a top 8 team, according to the ratings. Just don't think they're easy meat for a Real Sociedad team who have started to lose their grip on the top 4 since mid-January. Just 2 wins in 9. That way, they were a late win against Espanyol, who are in the bottom 3, and beating Elche, who are the no-hopers in La Liga, bottom of the table, long gone. They're heading to Segunda. And you look at their home performances in that time as well. Valladolid came here and won. They're battling relegation. Cadiz took a point. They're battling relegation. And Celta also took a point, who are kind of around lower mid-table. So I don't rate any of those 3 teams as marginally better than Getafe. I think they're all very much around the same level, at least Celta and Getafe are at least. So Sociedad failed to score in 5 of 9 and have failed to win half of their home fixtures, or at least over half of their home fixtures at Anoeta in La Liga this season too. So I wouldn't be too surprised if Getafe got something out of this game, but obviously we're looking for a win here, around about 6-1. If I carry on backing these prices, it will land at some point. So I'm determined not to miss out when it does.
Yeah, I'll be sticking with you, Mark. Don't worry. 7.0 being clipped in just to 6.8, but for context, 6.0, the most common sportsbook price, even as low as 5.75. So do check out the Matchup Betting Exchange when backing some of these teams in those 90-minute markets, particularly near kickoff as well. Okay, podcast bets. Mark, might go back to you on this one. Look, anti-QPR angles over the last 10 pro games have been quite profitable as well. Look, for obvious reasons. We've all seen the table, I'm sure, that Mark tweeted out about the championship table since the day that QPR were top of the league after that win on Sky Sports. So, Mark, what's happening? You know this better than anyone.
Well, I don't know where to begin, to be honest, Dan. But we had a big result in midweek. Actually, a massive result went our way. The EFL stepped in and deducted some points from Reading, which means we moved up a place in the table. Massive confidence boost to that. But no, it's pretty bleak, and I probably need a whole podcast to deconstruct everything that's gone wrong this season. But yeah, you've seen the table. Since topping the table in mid-October, we've won twice in 23 games and scored just 13 goals. Lost 15 of those, conceding 43. So that's a minus 30 goal difference. We are bottom for points, bottom for wins, bottom for goals scored, and top for goals conceded. Just horrifying stuff. I don't blame Neil Critchley nor Gareth Ainsworth for the poor results, the poor form. They've just been unable to sort of stem the tide, really. 8 defeats in 9. and now just a 3-point cushion ahead of the bottom three. Relegation looks a very real prospect at the minute. And last weekend away at Wigan, a Wigan side who, have had unpaid wages, players refusing to train because of the unpaid wages. You can see the penalty, a stupid penalty inside the opening 10 minutes, then show very little signs of getting back into the game. And at the end of the match, Leon Balogun, who's not been seen for months because of a mysterious injury, ends up having a bit of a ruck with fans. It's pretty ugly at the minute. The one shining light, I guess, is team news. Last week we had Willock, Dykes, Balogun, Laird and Chair back in the squad, but the spirit of the side just looks broken, and it's producing really horrible flashbacks of when we were last relegated from this level in the early 2000s. It's pretty hard viewing at the minute, and Preston are exactly the type of side who I really fear for us against. Very process driven, very clear philosophy about how they want to play, hard workers, a sprinkling of talent, just a really awkward team, competitive, difficult to beat, with a really good team spirit, led by a smart guy, Ryan Lowe. Just 5 defeats on their travels all season, the third best or fourth best return in terms of points per game away from home. And since losing to Burnley, which most people do in the Championship, they've only lost once in 9. That was at Middlesbrough. They've beaten Rotherham, Cardiff, Blackpool in the last 4. 3 teams the QPR are down there in a dogfight with. So, don't hold out much hope for Rangers this weekend. So to get Preston plus a quarter goal start on the Asian handicap at 1.86 just looks a delight, really. Will certainly ease the pain when we suffer another defeat.
I think I speak on behalf of the listeners to say that was a tough minute or two to listen to Mark O'Hare, but hopefully he's picked out a winner for you in Preston plus a quarter of a goal. And Miguel, Adrian did a lot of the heavy lifting for you here on your best bet of the whole card, which is both teams to score 1.9, Wolves versus Chelsea.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, Lampard himself, he's just been confirmed now. I think he's a much more reactive manager than he would argue in terms of how he sets up. Wolves, we've got ongoing issues there, and given there's a possibility, I think there's a bit of a spike either side. Both teams scoring now is going to be a safer bet, but it's tempting for a nil all as well.
Yeah, so definitely nil all could be a good saver there, and correct score markets on Matchbook are very competitively priced as well. Adrian, final word to you. Podcast best bet on the Premier League card for you.
Yeah, I've gone for Aston Villa. Aston Villa play Nottingham Forest, and you've got 2 teams in contrasting form, haven't you? Villa have won 5 and drawn 1 of their last 6. They're absolutely flying. All of those games finished under 3.5 goals, by the way. So when you see Aston Villa under 4.5, puts that into context. In terms of their home form this season, 12 of 14 Villa matches have gone under 4.5. So more often than not, this particular goal line comes in for us, and then you look at the form. As I said, Villa absolutely flying. Forest not so, winless in 8 games now, only won once away all season, and against the best teams, the top 10, 7 away games they've had. Forest against the current top 10, they've lost 6, they've drawn 1, and they've won none, and they've scored a grand total of 1 goal across those 7 games. So you got to say that this looks, on paper at least, as almost a home banker. I'm going to go with Villa and under 4.5 just to boost it up to 1.94.
Okay, seems a good price. Unai Emery's men and Villa fans in general are getting very, very giddy. My thanks to Mark, my thanks to Adrian and Miguel. We'll all be back Monday to preview the Champions League quarterfinals. Really excited for that. The football season is clicking into gear. Just 8 or 9, 10 games to go, depending who you are in the Premier League. Until next time, we'll chat to you Monday. Bye-bye.